Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing tonight, fellas?
Very good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great, doing
Yeah,
great.
doing all right. I don't know. I feel like I'm a little hungry tonight, guys. I feel like having some venison. What do y'all think? Mark, you got any
Okay,
venison
humor.
available for me?
All right, I will say humor helps soothe the soul when you're ticked. So, on my way home from work today, live in Michigan. I'm about a mile from home. Now, mind you, normally it takes me about an hour to an hour and a half to get home, depending on the traffic. I am 1 mile from home, and I'm going past where our rec center is, and a young deer, probably a fawn, a little bit older than a fawn, but not a full adult, probably like a teen, preteen, you know how they tend to be. Male walks out, decides to walk out in the street and comes so far, then he stops. And then at the last minute decided, I'm going to take off and go across street the rest of the way. My car tried to hit the brakes. My car's beeping. I see it. I hit the brakes. The car hits the brakes. The deer hits the car. Doesn't go up and hits the dash because we were going slow. We were going slow to begin with in that area because it was still a little slick out here. But goes partially up the hood, comes down, gets up, shakes himself off a little bit. I thought I might have broken something, but clearly I didn't because he shook himself off and got up and just walked away like, ha, have fun paying for that. So now I have to go through all the fun of getting all that paperwork and stuff handled. So we kind of talked about that a little bit in pre-show. And for those that might
Well,
have,
didn't you tell me you had a nice, you had a dashboard cam, but
yes,
YouTube won't let you play it because of the vulgarities in the streaming?
YouTube will let me. Well, there's no blood and guts out there, so YouTube will let me show it, so it won't be that bad. So I don't know. I might put it up there on a private channel and just a little private channel for you guys. If you guys want to know, want to see or as Michael Jackson says, if you want to see the footage, send me a message
But
and
only
I'll.
if we can hear what you're saying. That's all we care about.
No, you
We want
cannot
to
hear.
hear
You
you.
cannot hear what I'm saying. It's just the exterior cameras on the car. So
Okay.
yeah, if you guys want to see a deer, there's like I said, there's no blood and guts. So if you want that, you're not gonna get it. But if you want to see a deer hits the car, kind of rolls up a little bit, rolls down, stands up, shakes himself off, and just looks at me, just kind of okay, see ya. Yeah, okay.
I have a good idea for a good dinner selection. You know what that would be?
Don't you start.
Yeah, the possum stew that you made. It's got it.
Yeah, yep, possum stew.
Venison jerky, I hear, is really good.
Yeah. I've had it. If someone makes it right, yes, it is good. It is good. All right, let's get to this. Let's get the show on the road here, guys. Let's get this thing going. I think my mic is a little bit loud, so let me tune this down. I'm gonna have to fix this up a little bit later in
Sounds pretty
post.
good, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I already know that in post it will show up real highly, real distorted. So I had to kind of work on that a little bit.
Well,
So we had our wild card games, and from the wild card games, um, I
I
think
just
it,
sort of kind of
I think it pretty much went the way that I think it went exactly the way that it was predicted to go by the sporting books. So we're going to run through that. We're going to talk about the playoffs in the middle, obviously where we're standing at right now, and then we're going to go into the final, go into the championship weekend. So if you guys are ready to go, let's jump right into this. First game we have is New York Jets taking on Los Angeles. I know Coach Corbett had that moment where he was a little frustrated and was throwing in the towel, but he managed to fight back throughout the rest of the season, but came up short on this one, losing 23-14. We are going to start this show off with Dean.
yeah. I was expecting an upset here, and the Chargers kind of played tough, but they they couldn't quite get the job done. They fell a little behind in the rushing yards, and the teams are about even in the passing yards, but they just couldn't score enough on the tough Jets defense, and that ultimately made a difference. Couple interceptions didn't help their cause either. So it's a tough break, and I think as a team, I believe that Steven is in a position where he had to do some quick preparing for the game. I just didn't have a whole lot of time apparently, and as you would say, the Jets do what the Jets do, and they did, and they won the game by 9.
Okay. Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, LA was definitely game. I mean, it was pretty tight, tough game for the most part. But I think we all have lived at some point in our PNFL careers. If you turn the ball over 3 times against the Jets, it makes it tough, and that's what happened here with LA. The fumble, the 2 picks, -2 in the turnover ratio. That makes it tough when you're playing New York in New York. Because everything else, like I said, pretty solid game out there. So hats off to New York for taking care of business, and I'm sure that the Chargers will be back and ready to go in next season.
All right. Washington taking on San Francisco. I personally thought that Charlie was going to do an upset, but that was not to be, as Washington took this game 31-7. Mitch.
Yeah, this is our broadcast game from last week, so we all got to watch this one together with Charlie, and yeah, I think most of us thought this was going to be a much tighter game. If not, I think we might have had some upsets predicted in this one, but it was not meant to be. I mean, Washington, pretty much dominated this game, keeping the 49ers under control. They really couldn't get any kind of explosive play on offense, and Washington's kind of grinded it out on their offensive side with almost 200 yards rushing, and Murray didn't throw for a lot of yards, but he was super efficient and threw for 4 touchdowns, and so again, kind of vintage Redskins, if we really are honest with ourselves. So congrats to Jerry, and I'm sure the 49ers will retool and get ready for next season.
Yeah, that difference in the rushing yards really shows that 193 yards rushing for Washington, only 69 for the 49ers. And, Charlie's team really needs to run the ball more effectively than that, 69 yards, 3.3 per carry than that. And Jerry's Washington defense played very effectively. It was bend but don't break. They gave up some yardage, some against the passing to, Joe Burrow and the 49ers offense, but they didn't give up many scores. They other than one time, they kept San Francisco out of the end zone and kept them from kicking any, if many, field goals, if I remember right. So, the score is more lopsided than the stats, but, Washington was solid. And, I'm thinking at this point that Washington is going to go all the way this season. I think Jerry is going to win. He's won, a couple so far. This would be, his 3rd or 4th Super Bowl. I think he might do it this season. Washington looked very solid all around in this game.
And if you have not watched the game, even though you know the score, you can't get much better than the 3-man booth. So I would encourage everyone to go out and watch that and share it with all your friends.
There you go. Next game up on the AFC side, we have Kansas City taking on Minnesota. It was Mitch taking on Mitch's team he likes to cheerlead for. But this week it was Mitch's team taking this one 31-7. Dean.
Yeah, I have to say one thing about the game. During the regular season, this season, my lead pipe lock was more of a lead pipe curse, but my lead pipe lock here was gold. I predicted the
You're
Kansas City
welcome. You're welcome.
spread, and that happened. Solid effort, 454 yards of total offense, 153 yards of rushing, 301 in passing. It was a solid game, pretty solid game in the offense for the Chiefs, and they played some pretty solid defense, holding Minnesota to just 9 points, and that was apparently a touchdown and a field goal. We must have had did we have a
Yeah, it's a missed 2-pointer.
a 2-point conversion that was missed, or a PAT that was missed, but in any event, yeah, pretty solid when your defense holds a good team to single digits in the scoring, or even like 10 to 14, still pretty solid. And you score 31 against them. So, yeah, I mean, if the Chiefs play that well this coming weekend, we could see a very close game at New York, hosted by the Jets this weekend between those two.
Okay. Mitch, let's talk about your
Yeah.
team. What'd your team do right? What'd your team do wrong?
Well, like you said, besides my team, I'm typically the Minnesota's biggest booster. So this win, probably hurt me more than it did Barney. So I apologize to Barney for that. But no, in all honesty, this is probably my best overall performance, offensively, defensively, all year. So it couldn't have come at a better time. I just look to try to have some sort of repeat of this in the upcoming week, because it doesn't get any easier going into New York. But yeah, fun game. Always enjoy playing Barney, and I'm sure he'll remember this one, and he'll look to get me back next season.
So is this going to be your fifth conference championship game?
Yeah, I think so. I'm soon to be, like Marty Schottenheimer here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can actually win one and get to the Super Bowl.
There you go. Last game we have on the list, we have Chicago hosting Detroit, and I know that we talked early on that Detroit basically backed their way in, as Mitch described it, backed their way into the playoffs. And I don't know if I want to say that it showed or not. I think, let's see, because you had the Washington, San Francisco was, San Francisco had, 7 points. Minnesota had 9. And on this one, it was Chicago 44 and Detroit 9. Mitch.
Oh man, not a whole lot difference here in this game for Detroit than what they've had the last 4. In fact, I think that in some cases you could say this was a little worse than some of those outcomes there through the rest of the season. So not really sure what has happened in with the James in that team, and they had such a nice start to the season, and and heck, we were kind of chatting back and forth. Hey, could Detroit potentially, sneak into that first place in the East? And we went from that conversation to, a blowout in the first round of the playoffs. So, but all that being said, you got to give credit to Chicago. I mean, balanced performance, both sides of the ball. Did have some turnovers, and that has popped its head up throughout the season from time to time. But, overall, just complete domination over Detroit.
Well, we started talking in the last couple of weeks about the possibility that Detroit was going to end up backing out of the playoffs entirely and end up missing postseason by a game, and a couple of the other teams lost, so they still ended up getting in. But I'm going to draw your attention to one number here, and that's the number 3, and it shows up on the interceptions on the Detroit side. Trubisky threw 3 interceptions, which probably killed any chance they had of competing against the Cardinals. And, I have to ask you a question. Maybe that's why Trubisky is not in Las Vegas anymore, because he threw quite a few interceptions for the Raiders as well. And whatever you may speculate, whether it's game plans or ratings or some flaw or the,
it's the hidden rating.
Serious hidden rating or any of that stuff. 3 interceptions with any degree of frequency is not going to help any team that's featuring that person as their starting quarterback. That isn't going to get the job done. So it's really not.
When he was drafted, he was originally part of the Seattle franchise. Right. So not the Mark Seattle franchise.
No, I know
but
what you're talking
Dan Coach Seattle. He was Seattle.
The Dan Seattle franchise.
Wow. So what are you trying to say, huh?
Which ultimately became Cincinnati, which became the Headless Horseman Denver, which turned into Las Vegas under his current. And then he traded Trubisky for some kind of trade. I think it was for points to Detroit. So he had a better quarterback in waiting anyway, so it made sense to trade Trubisky for whatever he could get for him.
Yeah. Bottom line, Detroit did not finish the season well. But they have a lot of young talent, and I'm sure this is not the last we will hear from Detroit in the league, for sure.
Okay.
Well, no one's overlooking Detroit anymore either, so we have some tough NFC East games against the other 3 teams that Detroit is going to face next season.
Yep.
And Washington is going to be probably as good as ever, and we'll see what the Giants and the Falcons do. But I guarantee you that we're not just sitting here assuming that we're going to be competing for last place in the NFC East. So Detroit doesn't get a pass next season.
Okay.
Matter of fact, they're going to get just the opposite.
So you're definitely going to be trying to make a point next season.
What's that?
So you're definitely going to be trying to make a point next season, and just let them know.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of points that are going to get made by a number of teams next season, especially those other 3 teams in the NFC East. Some points will be made and they'll be scored as well.
Okay. It will be interesting to see, I must admit. Definitely be interesting to see. So,
yeah, everyone can renew their television packages to get their weekly subscriptions in order to watch next season's PNFL games. Don't miss it. Must see TV.
There you go. Get their fixes in to see how this is going to turn out.
Unfortunately, Rich hasn't sent this out yet, but he's made an exclusive deal with Peacock. Now we got to pay $10.99 a month to watch PNFL.
Oh boy, here we go again. Yeah, we need to have a little chat with him about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we need to put in that deal.
Yeah. Well, we all paid for that Peacock deal, and now they realize they can get money off of it. So what do you think they're going to try to do now?
Oh, that's not the last we've seen of that.
Oh no, not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. All right, so we're going to talk about our middle segment. Obviously, there's only one thing that's going on in the league right now. We have our conference championship games coming up. On the AFC side, we have the number 1 seed New York Jets taking on the number 2 seed Kansas City Chiefs. On the NFC side, we have the number 1 seed Chicago Cardinals taking on the number 2 seed Washington Redskins. So, Dean, what do you see? I guess. Go ahead.
I guess the fans of Chaos will be rooting for the number 2 seeds on both sides. And I think what I'm seeing is they're probably going to get half of their wish, because I think the AFC game will be tough, but I think the Jets will just combination of home field advantage and the other edges that the Jets usually have. As you like to say, the Jets will do what the Jets do. And an upset is possible. I can't rule it out, but I think it's more likely that the Jets are going to hold on to that edge at home and win a close game. But in the other game, it's going to be played at Chicago. But I think there's much more momentum and much more strength in what Washington is doing. You know, Washington did not have a late season slump this season. They stayed strong and finished with, I believe, it was a 13-3 record. And I think that momentum continues. I think Washington is going to be very solid this weekend and has a good chance of winning, I guess, what, according to the spread, would be an upset. But, you know, I look at these two teams, and other than the home field advantage for Chicago, I kind of think Washington is a better team. And, you know, I said that in something I posted on the forum a few weeks ago. I think even though Chicago has some better players at some spots, I think the Washington team overall is more balanced and more fundamentally sound roster-wise. And I think Jerry can put together the PVPs that will give him a chance to win this game, and I think it can happen. That's what I see happening.
All right, Mitch, what do you got?
Yeah. I would suspect that each of these games will be strong, entertaining games. I wouldn't expect blowouts in either game this time, but you know what? You know, don't be shocked if there is one, but I don't expect one. You never know sometimes how the ball will go. But yeah, I think the Washington is as capable of winning this game as anybody. We've seen them do that before. Whether it was some of those old New York Giant teams with Parkerson as the coach, or with Justin there in Chicago and other spots, and so Chicago rightfully will be favored or is favored, but I just expect a really really good game as far as AFC game goes. You know, the Jets are always tough, and I don't think you have to be a genius to look to see that I haven't always had my best games against the Jets, but I wouldn't be the only one. So I'm looking to get a little bit of that monkey off my back because I've, as Dean said, this will be my fifth championship game. I know I've had a few against the Jets, and obviously have come up short in some of those. So look to get this monkey off the back and get into the Super Bowl for the first time and see what can happen. But it's definitely not going to be easy. But we'll be ready for the task. We'll be ready for the task.
Sounds like a couple monkeys: a Jets monkey and a conference championship games monkey.
Yeah, well, it's the same. It's kind of the same monkey.
Kind of the same one.
Yeah, I'm kind of like the Browns versus the Broncos in the '80s a little bit.
You said the one in the NFC too, though. So
all I need is Ernest Biner to fumble the ball in the goal line, and I'll be in good shape. So
it makes me wonder, though, if you channel a little bit of Lou Holtz, what kind of analysis would you come up with in these games?
I'm just happy to take the field against these guys. I'll be lucky to. I'm just lucky to shine their shoes. What do you mean?
Just be honored to be out there with them. Yeah. How could we not know that?
Who's going to take that stance more, Jerry or Justin?
Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. We shall see.
Okay.
And for the rest of us, we have next season to look forward to. Well, you do too, but you're still playing this season.
Well, since we've already talked about this, and I was thinking as we're going through this, and I'm hearing you guys' commentary, let's talk about, because we still have some time left, actually quite a bit of time before we do our picks. Let's talk about the way, way, way too early draft. I'm assuming you guys have looked at the draft pool so far.
extensively.
Excuse me.
Extensively.
So what do you
I've
think?
glanced at it.
Yeah. So what do you think are I guess some of the top positions, or where you think, without giving too much away, where the bulk of the good talent's going to be at for this upcoming draft?
I think there's some pretty good talent overall on defense, and I think at least one of the positions, and I'll say probably cornerbacks. Um, the the selections may not be as strong as they have been in previous seasons, but there are some decent players there. But overall, I noticed there's a bit more of a tendency for some of the players to need a little bit more development in training camp than in some draft pools of the past. Um, I know 2 drafts ago we had a really deep and solid selection of wide receivers, and it kind of wasn't quite as strong at that position in the last draft. And this one, I think, maybe resembles the last one more. It's not as strong in wide receivers as the one 2 seasons ago. But there's some available players there that will be solid in the future as well. I think for teams that are like needing to draft a quarterback right now and start someone immediately, it may not be some of the players at that position have future potential, but not necessarily ready to start right now as they have been in the past.
Right.
So I think the one thing about this pool, and Charlie did make a comment in the email that some of the players have good ratings overall, but they have flaws in certain areas, and there are a number of players that, like wide receivers that are very good overall and might have like 80 speed, or linebackers that are solid overall but might only have like 78 agility. Those are the kinds of flaws I think Charlie was looking for. I think it means that teams will just have to really put more of an effort into really scouting the pool very well and deciding what they want. And in the case of taking players that might have a flaw in one rating, which rating are you willing to accept a flaw in, opposed to other ratings? Are you okay with drafting a linebacker with 78 agility? Are you okay with a slower wide receiver, or a defensive end that maybe only has 89 strength instead of a 91 or 92? Or some, these kinds of people have to decide, the trade-offs, and that will leave room for more disagreement, and people will point out that, oh, that was a really bad choice that this team made, or that was a really good choice, or whatever, and people will disagree over that, and there'll be a lot of debate over that. And for better or worse, I think this draft pool is kind of more prone to those kinds of things, other than, even, like the top 10 players. We probably all disagree on which 10 players in this draft are the top 10 prospects.
Right.
Now, I know 2 drafts ago, you two were really high on that defensive end that I think went to Indianapolis, I believe. I'm not sure we really see anyone that's, that will necessarily agree.
If I remember, it was a defensive end, and then there were a bunch of receivers that ended up going that were pretty good. Do you remember that during that one, Mitch?
Kind of, sort of. I remember Indianapolis drafted a player really high that I thought was
In the first round.
super good pick. Yeah, super good pick. But
Yeah, the defensive end.
Trayvon Walker. Yeah, Trayvon Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's I have him rated. I had him rated really high up on my board. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim drafted him, I think, was it first overall or second?
Yeah, it was in the top 5. I can't remember.
Yeah.
In the top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, top 5 in there. Okay. So, I guess what I'll say on that, before we move on to our last part and wrap up, is that if you guys haven't had a chance to take a look at the draft list out there, I would definitely suggest you guys start taking a peek at it, seeing what's available out there, what interests you, and what get your you guys' peak, and go from there and follow up with that. So there's a lot of there's some good players out there, and since we don't have anything else to do right now except watch the rest of the games, Now's a good time to go ahead and plan your strategy and get yourself all ready and get set for the next season. So, with that
Start the
being,
draft and
say again.
design some new plays at
Yep,
this point if you're out of the playoffs.
there you go.
Well, and I'll give you. You're asking about top 10 picks. I'll happy. I'm happy to tell y'all who I believe the top 10 players are. If y'all want to take some notes, this might be helpful for some of you all. I would say the top running back in the draft is Jeffrey Burkfield. I think y'all get a lot out of him. Top
Hmm.
tackle would be Aldo Peavy. Top defensive tackle, Murray Jean, very strong. Uh, Kicker, definitely the best kicker in the draft, Andrew Smite. Top safety, I mean, this guy, potential Ronnie Lott. Danny Fiacco. And then I think some of the PNFL scout department have said might be, this is a pretty tall order here, but might be the PNFL version of Lawrence Taylor, linebacker Scott Brienza. And so those players there, if y'all have a chance, I would definitely take those off the board early in this draft.
What was that running back's name?
It was Jeffrey Bergfield.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm,
Okay.
pre- I'm sure he's pretty high on your board too.
No, I didn't recognize the name. I didn't know if you were talking about this, so I asked. And,
Yeah. Jeffrey
so,
Bergfield. He's from Alcorn State, I believe, or something. Strong,
what was
underrated.
what
Maybe a
was the name
next
of the line?
Walter Payton type player.
What was the name of the linebacker?
That linebacker was Scott Brienza. Yeah, like I said, our scouting department thinks that that's the next Lawrence Taylor in this league.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
So, like I
Uh,
said, I highly recommend folks draft these guys early. In fact, if y'all would like to trade up to get these guys, I'm sure that some of us up there in the top 5 of the draft picks would be happy to, take a couple of ones if y'all want to get some of these Hall of Fame caliber players. So y'all just let us know.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and move over to our last part right now. As you guys will see here for the playoff edition, right now Mitch is sitting at 4-0 for overall predictions. Dean and I are both set at 3-1. Lead pipe lock. Mitch and Dean are both at 1-0, and I am at 0-1. So
you're
very.
lucky that we can actually see the look on your face when you tell us about those players. That would be priceless.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? I mean, I'm I'm being as straight faced as I can be.
Yeah, right. I know he was
And
pulling.
those,
I know he was pulling some
I mean,
stuff.
like I said,
So
that Brakefield, I'm telling
mm-hmm.
you guys, that is a steal of the draft. If you
Yeah.
want a Hall of Fame Emmett Smith, Walter Payton type player,
Mm-hmm.
Birdfield,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Birdfield.
gonna, I'm gonna guess that you don't
That'll
play
be when
poker.
Charlie
So
sends out a message and asks, "Are you sure you want to draft this guy?"
I'm gonna guess that you don't play poker much, and I know that, and I don't either. So
Mm-hmm. Don't
Uh,
believe the
all
hype,
right. Well,
guys.
hey,
So
when I take Birdfield with the number 2 pick, I'm
okay.
just telling y'all, y'all had the chance. I gave y'all a heads up.
All right.
yeah, then I know you've been spending too much time at the casino if you do that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I
So
have a piece of paper that says draft Bergfield no matter what.
yeah. Right. Moving on, people. As we come up to our last segment, we've already went through the breakdown for the lead pipe locks, and what we are going to see right now is the first game on our list. We have the Kansas City Chiefs being guests to go play the New York Jets. The Sporting Books is giving the Jets 8.5. We're going to start with Dean.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tight game. I think both teams are going to have some pretty balanced offense and some pretty good defense. Although I think the edge will go to the Jets. They're playing at home, and the Jets have been pretty. Hold on a second. The Jets have been pretty solid on defense, so I think it's going to be a close Jets win. Okay.
All right. Coach.
Well, let's see here, guys. The Jets have the most efficient passing game in the league. They, they're the second best in the league behind Washington, who obviously is in the playoffs here in the championship games, at making their opponents ineffective at passing. They are third against the run. Third in rushing in the league. The second in the league in interceptions created, yet they are the best in the league at not throwing interceptions. So, I look at this, and again, it's like I don't even know if I'm going to send a PPP in. I think it's pretty much already done and over.
Oh
But
my God.
I so I I don't even know how I got past the Minnesota this past week. That was obviously luck out there. So we'll see what happens. I know I can't pick against my team, but I just hope that the Jets, just don't run up the score, late in the fourth quarter on us. But we'll see what
Oh,
happens.
guys,
But,
it's getting deep. It's getting deep. Okay.
Just,
Turn off his mic. Turn off his mic.
I just hope I don't turn into a deer and the Jets be your car fly after me.
All right, somebody
We'll
turn
see
off
what
his
happens.
mic. Turn off his mic. All right. For me, I think it's gonna, as Dean mentioned earlier, it's gonna be a close game. It's going to be a good game, but I give a slight edge to the Jets. I think it'll be a victory by 3, late in the fourth. That's
By
where
3 touchdowns or 3 points?
3 points.
Oh, okay.
They'll be separated by a field goal. It'll be a field goal late in the fourth.
I got you.
Next game we have Chicago hosting Washington, and they are giving Chicago 8.5. Mitch.
and no one put a lead pipe lock on the Jets Chiefs game.
Nope. So I guess we're all lead pipe locking this one.
I say I have no choice. I have to do mine on this next game. So because I can't obviously let pipe my own game. All right. So if I'm looking at this one, guys, Chicago and Washington, they're 2 and 3 in the league as far as passing efficiency. They're also, so that's good there. Washington is number 1 in pass defense, or at least keeping their opponent's efficiency low out there. So that's a plus for Washington.
Right.
Chicago leads the league in rushing, but just over 100 yards more than Washington. So again, two of the more dominant teams as far as rushing and pass efficiency. Both teams are top 3 in rush defense. So, and Washington leads the league in interceptions out there. So, but Chicago really doesn't throw a whole lot of interceptions. So, this is going to be an interesting game. At least statistically, both teams are pretty high in a lot of these key metrics. Because I got to put a lead pipe lock on it. Honest to goodness. You know what? I'm going to go with Chicago. I'm going to go with Chicago, but I believe that it will be less than that 8.5 point spread. I'll say that.
All right. Dean.
Well, I'll remind you that on some occasions, Sam Darnold can throw an interception or two, and he's playing the team, as you said, that leads in intercepting opposing quarterbacks. Yep. So I think that will be the difference. It won't be a close game, but I think Washington will win this game. And yes, of course, I am putting the lead pipe lock, and it will not be a curse. It will be gold on Washington winning the NFC Championship and going to the Super Bowl.
Okay, calling for the upset. Uh, I'll keep it simple. I'm going with Chicago. I think it's going to be another Chicago Super Bowl from the NFC side, representing that side of the ball or that side of the league. So I think it'll be another close game as well, maybe separated by a touchdown. I don't think it's going to be as tight as the first one. So. All right, guys, we are going to wrap this thing up, our little short and condensed version. I think next week we should have a longer show as we have our finalists and see if we can get them on air.
And that touchdown could be a pick for 6.
It could be a pick 6, most definitely, or an overtime play. So,
yeah.
All right.
You never know.
Yep. So as we're coming to wrap this up, we're going to spin this over to Dean. One final word.
Yeah, it just should be good games and good luck to the 4 teams that are in it, and try not to throw that pick for 6 that will end up winning the game for the other team.
There you go. Mitch, what do you got?
Well, since Joe Flacco isn't any of the quarterbacks playing this week for any of our teams, hopefully, I don't know if the pick sixes will be coming at a high frequency, but that being said, should be a fun week, and we'll have a lot to talk about. As next week will be our Super Bowl preview. So, only thing left to do now is let's get it.